The bulk of this country today, it's secure.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be discussing the longest-running international conflicts that are still ongoing at the time of this writing. Jamaican political conflict. The background and activities behind any conflict are likely to have multiple players with their own agendas and motivations.
The violence was beginning to break the confidence of the Jamaican people in their own society, and therefore having a very bad effect on the economy.
The history of conservative and liberal clashes within Jamaican political parties dates back to 1943, with both sides still occasionally rising up with violence against their opposition. There have also been accusations of major world economies clandestinely funding the two major Jamaican parties.
They were treating government money as if it was their personal money.
Specifically, it's been surmised that America's CIA organization is somehow involved with the conservative Jamaican Labor Party, while the democratic socialist beliefs of the People's National Party have been said to have been backed by the government of Cuba as well as the former Soviet Union.
We have to know that it's not only the victims that are hurting, but also the offenders as well.
The Somali Civil War. It's not entirely rare that a major military conflict ebbs and flows over the years, with certain phases waxing and waning on through an eventual end.
So they blew up this wall?
Yes, exactly.
And you fixed it already?
Of course. We fixed it within a days, not more than 2 days. Within
so
2
life
days
goes on?
Yes, of course. And it will.
The civil war in Somalia is still ongoing at the time of this writing, however, despite possessing origins that date back to 1991 and the ousting of former Somali President Siad Barre. The latter had himself taken power via a military junta back in 1969, but there was growing unrest and resistance to the Barre regime that further fueled the fires of war.
This is a country at one point that was the best democratic country in Africa. Now it has become, in a sense, the worst because there has been no government in place for 25 years.
Today, clashes between the al-Qaeda loyalist al-Shabaab militants, Somali federal forces, and various peacekeeping groups still erupt, with al-Shabaab territory holding a large influence within southern areas of Somalia.
How do you stay safe when you're running restaurants like this?
Basically, there's always hope. I give him always hope. And one day, is he coming sooner? Is he coming later?
The Papua Conflict. The large island of New Guinea has been the home of this conflict that's been largely centered over its Indonesian-controlled western half.
I sometimes feel depressed because of the situation that we face here.
The Free West Papua campaign has been involved in small-scale guerrilla warfare against Indonesian officials as well as civilians.
In December 2018, a group of West Papuan independence fighters ambushed and slaughtered at least 16 Indonesian road workers.
The Papua conflict stands in the shadow of Papua New Guinea in the east, an autonomous country free from Indonesian administration. There have also been accusations against Indonesia with regards to their treatment of West Papua citizens, the suspension of their human rights, and of violent targeted killings.
How much do you worry for your safety at the moment in West Papua?
Along my life, I worry about my life. Not only me, I worry about my people's lives. All the people in West Papua worry about their life.
Active skirmishes have been reported throughout 2025, including a killing of 2 Indonesian police officers as recent as May 16th of that year. The Cabinda War. Angola was officially declared an independent country after a peaceful coup ended its war for independence back in 1974.
After 15 years of liberation struggle, Angola attained independence from Portugal.
The Republic of Cabinda was a protectorate prior to this time, when Angola was still under the control of the Portuguese. The Cabinda War officially kicked off a year later, with the Front for the Liberation of the Enclave of Cabinda seeking to re-establish itself away from its current status as an unrecognized state.
Taking a page from the newly reorganized National Front for the Liberation of Angola, FLEC established a government in exile on January 10, 1967, in a move welcomed by Gabon, the Central African Republic, and Uganda, among others.
Violent skirmishes have been reported as recently as 2022, while accusations of human rights violations have been laid at the feet of Angolan authorities.
The Cabinda enclave is still the scene of clashes.
Kurdish separatist insurgencies. There are a number of important examples of Kurdish uprisings within areas like Iran and Iraq that are still ongoing at the time of this writing.
A pause in the fighting between NATO-allied Turkey and Kurdish forces in northern Syria has been welcomed by the US.
The longest lasting are the Iraqi-Kurdish conflict that emerged in the aftermath of World War I in 1918, Kurdish separatism in Iran from around the same time, and the Kurdish-Turkish conflict that dates back to 1921.
The violence is worse than it's been in more than a decade. 700 people have been killed since last June, 14 months.
The Iraqi-Kurdish conflict has seen a decrease in violence over the years following the Iraq War in 2003, while less intense uprisings and violent clashes have also been reported in Iran since 2016. Meanwhile, a tentative and complicated ceasefire agreement between Turkey and the Kurdistan Workers' Party was announced in March of 2025.
Önümüzde 1000 yıllık kardeşliğimizin arasına örülen terör duvarının yıkılması hedefine giden yolda tarihi bir adım atma fırsatı vardır.
Korean Conflict. The Korean War may have ended in 1953, but conflict within that region has been ongoing since 1948 and remains a very active and volatile proposition.
If this were to happen, is this a short war or a long war?
I think it's a short war.
The war actually exists as a frozen conflict, since no peace treaty was officially signed, and both North and South Korea still lay claim to sole sovereignty.
Today, the 291st meeting of the Military Armistice Commission is being held here at Panmunjom. Today's meeting is ending as usual with stalemate.
Korea's former status as a Japanese colony may have ceased after World War II, but Cold War-era attempts to unify that country by both the United States and the Soviet Union were failures that led directly into the Korean conflict's legacy into the modern day.
South Korea's military says it is, quote, fully ready to respond after North Korea ordered troops on the border to prepare to fire.
It's unsure at this point whether Korea's demilitarized zone will ever be a thing of the past, or whether North and South Korea will ever be united. IndoPakistani Wars. The partition of India in 1947 divided this former British colony into two separate states, the Dominion of Pakistan and what's now known as the Republic of India. Conflict over land and territory, such as the Kashmir region, have been ongoing since 1947.
So in the 1990s, conflict in Kashmir raged again.
There have also been reports of terrorist activity related to this conflict within both Pakistan and India over the course of the last 50 years.
There's been a long-standing disagreement on how to even approach diplomacy, with India opposing the involvement of other countries and Pakistan favoring international mediation.
Worry surrounding the possible usage of nuclear weapons remains a valid one for those living in these regions, since the history of Indo-Pakistani warfare has ebbed and flowed for over 75 years at the time of this writing.
It's a deeply felt and very real conflict.
Afghan conflict. Far more intelligent folks than us have weighed in upon the seemingly endless amount of combustive political tensions that have dominated Afghanistan.
ما امروزه فیلم برداری کنیم که چطور بیرق داود خان تا میشه و عوضش بیرق سرخ یا بیرق پرچمیا بالا میشه. همین بیرق داود خانه که پس بالا کردیم اینکه یکی دیگر تونگه میکنن در بازار، یکی دیگر به بچه برگشت. انقلاب برگشت کرد.
Conflict within this region has existed in one form or another since 1978, specifically within the power vacuum that emerged in the wake of the Sour Revolution in 1978. The removal of former Afghan President Mohammed Daoud Khan, who also took autocratic power after a coup d'etat 5 years earlier, pushed the region into a socialist direction that tied itself with the Soviet Union.
درست 23 فبروری 1980 درست یک ماه و چند روز بعد از آمدن قوای شوروی در افغانستان مردم کابل قیام کردند. شب هنگام به بامای خود بیرون می شدند و صدای الله اکبر می کشیدند.
Since then, notable events such as the September 11th terrorist attacks upon the United States, American retaliation in the region, and the Taliban's return to power have ensured that life in Afghanistan remains unstable.
Le drapeau américain a été retiré de l'ambassade. Le président Ashraf Ghani a fui au Tadjikistan et déclaré les talibans ont gagné.
Arab-Israeli Conflict. This long-standing and seemingly never-ending conflict between the State of Israel and the region of Palestine is one that has spilled over into the political discourse of countries all over the world.
After the war was over, the United Nations decided to partition Palestine into two countries, the Jewish state of Israel and the Arab state of Palestine. Israel agreed to the partition, and borders were drawn for two states, but many Arab residents thought the partition unfairly favored the Jewish population.
It's a conflict of many sides, stories, and opinions, as supporters from both sides plead cases for homeland and heritage. The Gaza War is the most recent example of violence between Israel and Palestinian forces, but the central focus of the Arab-Israeli conflict primarily has to do with ancestral claims of territory.
By the late 1980s, Palestinian frustration exploded into the Intifada, which is the Arabic word for uprising.
These claims have often escalated to the point of violence, although various moments of tenuous peace have existed in the aftermath of events such as the Yom Kippur War of 1973 and the Egypt-Israel Peace Treaty in 1979.
Important decisions have to be made if we are to proceed on the road to peace.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications.
Myanmar Conflict. It was known as Burma prior to the 4/8 uprising of 1988, the protests and riots that eventually resulted in the establishment of the Republic of the Union of Myanmar.
As if to underline what they saw as Burma's new era, the generals also changed its name to Myanmar.
And it was back in 1948 that what was then Burma saw the onset of its internal conflict involving armed ethnic groups within the region. Ceasefire attempts within Myanmar have been attempted but failed, with fighting and human rights violations continuing to be a problem within the region.
I stated that in Myanmar the situation of human rights remains alarming.
Accusations have been levied against both Myanmar's armed forces divisions, the Tatmadaw, as well as resistance groups. Charges which include but aren't limited to the usage of landmines against civilians, as well as child labor for soldier recruitment. Are there any historical conflicts that fascinate you? Let us know in the comments.
We have to exchange 3 documents, so we'll all sign 3 times for this one.